Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts and clutch your army bombs tight because the year we have all been hallucinating about is finally on the horizon, 2026. It is not just a number on a calendar, it is a prophecy, a promise of the most beautiful moment in life returning to our reality. The kings are gathering, the military uniforms are shed, and the practice rooms in HYBE are buzzing with an energy we haven't felt in half a decade. We are talking about the greatest musical reunion in pop culture history, a global pilgrimage where millions of purple lights will once again illuminate the night sky. But hold your breath, because amidst the euphoria and the desperate saving for ticket wars, a dark cloud of logistical nightmares, infrastructure failures, and scheduling conflicts is looming over the United States leg of the tour. We have cracked open the data, analyzed stadium renovation schedules across North America, looked at the terrifying inflation of touring costs, and uncovered the harsh reality that some of the most iconic stops from the Times Love Yourself times and Times Map of the Soul times eras might be completely wiped off the map. This isn't just speculation. This is a strategic analysis of where the purple ocean can physically flow and where the doors might remain shut. Could your city be the one left in the dark? Are we looking at a tour that prioritizes efficiency over nostalgia? Which major metropolis is crumbling under the weight of safety regulations that might ban a mega production of this scale? And most importantly, if your hometown is cut, do you have a plan B ready to fly across the country? Prepare your hearts, because we are counting down the danger zones. This is the reality check no one wanted, but everyone needs to hear. Number 7. The Silicon Valley Silence, Santa Clara. We are kicking off this heartbreaking countdown with a location that has been a staple in the BTS touring history, and a venue that holds the echoes of the Times Love Yourself times era and the chilling winds of the Bay Area that we all brave just to see those 7 silhouettes rise from the stage. But alas, though the writing is on the wall for Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California, and the culprit isn't lack of demand, it is a global collision of titans that no one saw coming until we looked at the calendar. You have to understand the magnitude of what is happening in 2026. It is not just the year of the BTS return. It is the year the United States, Mexico, and Canada host the FIFA World Cup. And this singular sporting event is the logistical Grim Reaper for summer stadium tours across North America. Levi Stadium is officially confirmed as a host venue for the World Cup matches, and here is the educational nugget that turns this speculation into a terrifying probability. FIFA does not just borrow a stadium for a weekend, they commandeer it for months. We are talking about an exclusive use period that typically begins weeks before the first kickoff to install natural grass over the artificial turf, remove all conflicting sponsorship branding, and set up security perimeters that would make the Pentagon look like a playground. BTS typically tours in the sweet spot of late May through July to capitalize on the weather, but in 2026, Levi Stadium will be on total lockdown during those exact months, transformed into a fortress for soccer, not a sanctuary for army. But let's dig deeper into the emotional and logistical reasons why Santa Clara specifically is the first to get the axe. Historically, the Bay Area stop has always been the little sibling to the massive Los Angeles shows. When you look at the economics of a megatour, efficiency is king. In previous years, BTS would play Levi's Stadium and then head south to the Rose Bowl or SoFi, but with the sheer inflation of touring costs, freight shipping for stage equipment has skyrocketed by 300% since 2019 promoters are looking to cut redundancy. Why set up a massive stage in Santa Clara for 2 nights? Dealing with the notorious curfew laws of the city? Remember, Santa Clara has one of the strictest noise curfews in the nation, dealing with the notorious curfew, often fining artists thousands of dollars for every minute they go over 10:00 p.m., and we know our boys love a long encore when they can just consolidate the entire West Coast demand into a massive multi-week residency in Los Angeles. It is a brutal calculation of cost per head versus emotional payoff. Think back to the struggle of getting to that stadium. It is located in the heart of tech giants, no miles away from the cultural vibrance of San Francisco, making it a logistic nightmare for fans flying in who have to navigate the overpriced hotels of Silicon Valley. The atmosphere there, while electric once the Army bombs turn on, lacks the acoustic containment of a dome. The sound bleeds into the open air, and the wind from the bay often chills the sweat on your back. Compare that to the likely alternative. SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, a technological marvel with a roof, a massive dedicated complex, and a history of hosting the Times' permission to dance on stage Times residency. If HYBE and Live Nation have to navigate the FIFA blockade, they will not fight for Santa Clara. They will look at the map, see the massive red blocked dates on the Levi Stadium calendar for June and July, and they will make the executive decision to bypass Northern California entirely. It is a tragedy for the NorCal armies who have held down the fort since the Times Wings Times tour days at the Oracle Arena, watching their local stop grow from an arena to a stadium, only to potentially see it vanish right when the reunion is at our doorstep. The narrative of 2026 is going to be about scarcity and scale, and unfortunately, a venue that is legally bound to FIFA contracts and geographically shadowed by the entertainment capital of the world, LA, is the easiest weight to shed from the schedule. Imagine the sinking feeling of the tour poster dropping, your eyes scanning past Seattle, scanning past Vancouver, looking for Santa Clara or San Francisco, and finding nothing but a blank space between a potential Las Vegas stop and Los Angeles. It forces a difficult choice. Do you spend your savings on a flight to LA, fighting millions of others for the same tickets? Or do you sit this one out? The erasure of Santa Clara isn't personal. It's a casualty of the two biggest fandoms in the world, football and Kpop, trying to occupy the same space at the same time, and this time, the ball is likely to kick the microphone right off the stage. This serves as a wake-up call that the 2026 tour will not be a copy-paste of 2019. The world has changed, the venues are booked, and the map is being redrawn. Number 6. The Southern Sanctuary Shutdown, Atlanta. We are moving down the map and straight into the heart of the dirty South, to a city that holds perhaps the most painful scar from the cancelled Times Map of the Soul, 7 Times tour, and the potential deletion of this stop in 2026 feels like reopening a wound that never truly healed for the Southeastern armies. We are talking about the cultural jewel of Georgia, Atlanta, and specifically the architectural marvel that is the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Now, to understand why this city is flashing red on our danger radar, we have to go back to the heartbreak of 2020. Atlanta was promised a show. It was set to be the moment where the bulletproof Boy Scouts finally communed with the hip-hop capital of the world, a spiritual homecoming for the rap line Namjoon, Yoongi, and HYBE, who built their artistic DNA on the beats and flows that originated from these very streets. Fans had their outfits planned, the fan projects were funded, and the excitement was palpable because Mercedes-Benz Stadium isn't just a venue. It is a futuristic coliseum with that iconic aperture roof that opens like a camera lens, ready to capture the purple ocean in all its glory. But here is the cold, hard educational reality check for 2026. Atlanta is not just a participant in the FIFA World Cup, it is a Times headquarters asterisk. The U.S. Soccer Federation is building a massive training center nearby, and the stadium itself is slated to host key matches, potentially even the semifinals. So what? You might ask, BTS can just play on a Tuesday. No, it is not that simple. The issue here is the turf war, quite literally. Mercedes-Benz Stadium uses artificial turf for the NFL Falcons and MLS United, but FIFA mandates pristine, natural grass for the World Cup. This isn't a carpet you roll out in an afternoon. This involves a massive engineering project to install a temporary specialized soil and irrigation system over the concrete floor, but a process that requires the stadium to be effectively shut down for non-soccer events for weeks, if not months, prior to the first whistle in June. If BTS plans their reunion tour during the traditional summer window of late May through July, the doors to this venue will be locked tight by FIFA security protocols. And let's talk about the routing nightmare that this creates. Tours are like connecting the dots. You need a logical flow of trucks and buses. Usually, Atlanta serves as the anchor for the entire Southeast United States. If you delete Atlanta, you create a massive geographical void between the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, and Texas. We analyzed the alternative venues, and it is grim. Nissan Stadium in Nashville? It's an option, but it lacks the roof and the modern infrastructure of Atlanta. Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte? Similar issues with weather vulnerability. The promoters at HYBE are obsessed with production value and safety. They want controlled environments where the intricate stage mechanisms, the flying riggings for Euphoria-style stunts, and the massive LED walls are safe from the unpredictable torrential thunderstorms that plague the South in the summer. Atlanta's retractable roof was the safety net. Without it, the risk of a rain-delayed or canceled show skyrockets, and with the tight schedule of a global reunion tour, they cannot afford a cancellation. Furthermore, we have to consider the inflation of logistics. Driving the convoy of equipment deep into the South for just 1 or 2 nights, only to have to turn around and drive thousands of miles to the next hub, becomes financially harder to justify if the premier venue is unavailable. The cost of diesel, the driver shortages, and the union labor rates in 2026 are projected to be at all-time highs. It is a brutal equation where the passion of the fans battles against the rigidity of a soccer schedule and the spreadsheet of an accountant. Imagine the devastation of the Atlanta Armies, who have been waiting since the Times Wings Times era for a proper stadium show, watching the tour dates drop and seeing the South completely bypassed, forcing them into a Hunger Games scenario for tickets in Chicago or New Jersey. The emotional weight here is heavy because Atlanta represents a musical validation. It's the city of Outkast, of trap music, of the culture that influenced BTS's early sound. To skip it is to sever a musical connection. And let's not forget the hotel apocalypse. Even if, by some miracle, BTS squeezed in a date just before the FIFA lockdown, then the city's hotels would already be block-booked by soccer delegations, media, and tourists, driving room prices to thousands of dollars a night, making the trip unaffordable for the average fan. This is the edutainment reality of the modern mega-event economy. When two giants collide, the World Cup and the BTS reunion physics dictates that two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. The silence in the A-Town might be deafening in 2026, and it serves as a stark reminder that while our love is infinite, space and time are unfortunately limited. Number 5. The Emerald City Exclusion, Seattle. We are traveling to the upper left corner of the United States, into the misty, coffee-fueled heart of the Pacific Northwest, where the dream of a purple rain in the City of Rain has been keeping the armies of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho warm through the long, gray winters. But I am afraid we have to look at the cold, hard logistics of the Emerald City, Seattle, and specifically the roar of the Lumen field. This potential deletion is particularly stinging because Seattle is a city that thrives on its musical heritage, the birthplace of Hendrix, the cradle of grunge, the home of Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and the local fans have been screaming for a cultural update that includes the biggest band in the world. But here's the edutainment breakdown of why Seattle is sitting at number 5 on our danger list, and it is a fascinating case study in what tour managers call the tyranny of geography, colliding with the FIFA fortress. First, let's talk about the map. In the high-stakes game of routing a stadium tour, every mile costs money, thousands of dollars in fuel, driver hours, and wear and tear on the massive fleet of 50-plus semi-trucks required to haul the BTS stage production. Seattle is geographically isolated. It is a dead end on the U.S. touring map. To play Seattle, you have to drive hundreds of miles north from California or west from the Midwest, play the show, and then drive all the way back out. There is no passing through Seattle. You go there on purpose. In previous years, when touring costs were lower, promoters could justify this detour. But in the hyper-inflated economy of 2026, where efficiency is the god everyone worships, that detour is a massive red line on the budget sheet. But the final nail in the coffin is, once again, the 2026 World Cup. Lumen Field is a confirmed host venue, and this is where the story gets technically interesting and heartbreaking. Lumen Field is famous for its 12th man volume, holding the Guinness World Record for the loudest crowd roar at a sporting event. Imagine the decibel levels of 70,000 armies doing the fan chant there. It would arguably register on the Richter scale. However, Lumen Field uses synthetic turf. FIFA, in their unwavering rigidity, demands a natural grass pitch. Because of Seattle's unique climate, the constant drizzle and lack of direct sunlight due to cloud cover, growing and maintaining a temporary grass pitch inside that stadium is a horticultural nightmare that requires massive grow, lights, sophisticated drainage systems, and weeks of installation time. The stadium will effectively be a construction zone for the entire month leading up to the tournament. Now, usually, the Pacific Northwest contingency plan is, okay, if not Seattle, then Vancouver. But here is the twist that makes this the Pacific blackout. Vancouver's BC Place is also times a World Cup host city. Both major stadiums in the region are locked down simultaneously. This creates a massive geographic void of over 1,000 miles between Los Angeles and the Canadian border where no stadium shows can realistically happen during the prime summer months. We also have to consider the weather risk factor. While BTS has performed in the rain before shout-out to the legendary Soldier Field shows, promoters are becoming increasingly risk-averse with the complex robotics and flying screens planned for the 2026 reunion. Low stage. Seattle's unpredictable June weather, which can oscillate from glorious sun to torrential downpours in the span of an hour, it poses a technical hazard for a setup that is likely to be the most technologically advanced in music history. The open roof of Lumen Field offers no protection. Compare this to the safety of a dome in other regions, and the choice becomes clear for the insurance underwriters. This potential exclusion forces the entire Pacific Northwest fanbase into a desperate migration. We are talking about tens of thousands of fans flooding the I-5 corridor, trying to get to California, or fighting for flights to Chicago. The emotional toll here is the feeling of being always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Seattle fans often see their city on the to-be-announced lists that never materialize, and 2026 was supposed to be the redemption arc. They have the population, they have the passion, and they have the tech money, Amazon, Microsoft, to afford the tickets, but they don't have the calendar availability. It is a harsh reminder that in the world of mega events, your city's infrastructure is destiny. The silence of the Space Needle will be a heavy burden to bear if this prediction comes true, leaving the PNW armies to wave their army bombs at a tour bus that drives right past them on the way to a more convenient, grass-free venue. It is a logistical tragedy of the highest order, proving that even the biggest band in the world cannot bend the laws of time, space, and FIFA soil requirements. Number 4. The H-Town heartbreak, Houston. We are heading deep into the heat of the Lone Star State, to the city of syrup, slabs, and space exploration, where the butter remix queen herself, Megan Thee Stallion, calls home, and where the dream of a The BTS homecoming collaboration has been keeping the spirits of Texan armies high, but we must face the brutal, sweating reality that Houston, Texas, and its colossal NRG Stadium are blinking violently red on the deleted list for 2026. This is a massive blow because Texas is usually a stronghold for BTS. The energy there is unlike anywhere else, a mix of Southern hospitality and ferocious, deafening passion. But here is the edutainment deep dive into why Houston is number 4, and it is a tale of sibling rivalry and FIFA supremacy. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The 2026 World Cup? NRG Stadium is a confirmed host city. Now, you might think, Texas is huge, they can surely fit in a concert. But you have to understand the specific engineering nightmare that is NRG Stadium in the context of FIFA regulations. NRG is famous for its tray-based grass system, but for the World Cup, the requirements for pitch consistency are so scientifically rigorous, we are talking about soil density, grass blade height measured to the millimeter, and drainage capability that the stadium will essentially become a greenhouse laboratory for weeks. They cannot risk a massive concert stage, which weighs hundreds of tons and involves thousands of people trampling the ground, damaging the sacred pitch right before a global broadcast. But the reason Houston is specifically at risk of being times cut times, rather than just times rescheduled times, lies in the brutal logistics of market cannibalization and the existence of a bigger beast just up the Preston 94 Preston Highway, AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Dallas. In the ruthless calculus of tour routing, when time is limited, and remember, the tour window is being squeezed by the World Cup on both ends, promoters have to make hard choices. They look at the map and see 2 major markets separated by a 4-hour drive, or a 30-minute flight. AT&T Stadium holds 80,000 to 100,000 people. NRG holds roughly 72,000. If HYBE can only fit one Texas stop into the narrow window between FIFA matches, They are going to choose the venue with the higher ticket capacity to maximize revenue and accommodate the most fans in one go. That is Dallas. This leaves Houston, the fourth largest city in America, completely out in the cold. And let's talk about the emotional devastation of this specific loss. The Megan Thee Stallion factor cannot be overstated. Ever since the iconic performance of the Butter remix, fans have fantasized about a Houston show where Megan comes out as the surprise guest on her home turf to perform with the boys. It would be a pop culture moment for the history books, a collision of K-pop and Houston hip-hop that would melt the internet. Losing the Houston stop isn't just losing a concert, it's losing the potential for that specific, legendary cultural crossover. Furthermore, we have to talk about the I-45 nightmare. If Houston is deleted, hundreds of thousands of fans from South Texas, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast are forced to migrate north to Dallas. Have you ever driven on I-45 between Houston and Dallas? It is already one of the most dangerous and congested highways in America. Add 50,000 armies trying to make that drive on the same weekend? It is a logistical catastrophe waiting to happen. The hotels in Dallas will be price gouged to oblivion, and the ticket war for that single Texas stop will be a bloodbath, pitting Houstonians against Dallasites in a battle for seats that will make the Ticketmaster Times crash of the past look like a minor glitch. We also have to consider the production infrastructure. Houston's NRG Stadium has a retractable roof, which is crucial for the brutal Texas summer heat, where temperatures regularly hit 100 degrees with 90% humidity. If the stadium is unavailable due to soccer, there are no outdoor venues in Houston capable of hosting a BTS-level production without putting the members and the fans at serious risk of heat stroke. You can't just move this show to a baseball park like Minute Maid. The stage won't fit, and the field damage issues remain the same. So, the promoters are backed into a corner. The calendar says no because of FIFA, the geography says go to Dallas because of efficiency, and the weather says don't even try outdoors. It is a perfect storm that leaves H-Town, a city that has supported BTS with massive streaming numbers and radio play, staring at a blank space on the tour schedule. The Space City might have no space for the stars we want to see the most. It is a harsh lesson in how the global sports industrial complex can steamroll over cultural nuances, leaving us with a one-size-fits-all tour itinerary that ignores the unique flavor and history of a city like Houston. So, if you are in the 713 area code, you might want to start setting price alerts for flights to other cities because the Purple Rodeo might be passing you by in 2026. Number 3. The New England Nightmare, Boston. We are traveling to the cradle of the American Revolution, the city of intellect, chowder, and fierce loyalty, where the Boston strong mentality meets the indomitable spirit of army. But it looks like the lanterns in the Old North Church are not signaling 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, but rather 0 if by stadium, because Boston, Massachusetts, and the legendary Gillette Stadium are sitting dangerously high on the chopping block for the 2026 reunion tour. This is a devastating blow to the New England Coalition fans from Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, who have long argued that their region deserves its own Purple Ocean without having to trek south. But here is the edutainment deep dive into why Boston is. Number 3, and it is a complex cocktail of venue isolation, the MetLife monopoly, and yes, the inescapable shadow of the World Cup. First, we have to look at the venue itself. Gillette Stadium is not actually in Boston, it is in Foxborough, a town geographically isolated in the woods about halfway to Providence. While it is a fortress for the Patriots, for concert logistics, it is a nightmare of single-lane highways and a commuter rail system, the Patriot train, that is notorious for its rigid schedules. But the real killer for 2026 is the FIFA mandate. Gillette Stadium is a confirmed World Cup host. Now, pay attention to this specific detail. Gillette is famous for its field-level suites and its unique open corners where the wind swirls in unpredictable patterns. For the World Cup, the stadium is undergoing massive renovations to widen the field to meet international soccer standards, which involves removing sideline seating and altering the very architecture of the lower bowl. This construction and the subsequent clean venue period required by FIFA means the stadium is effectively a construction site and then a high-security soccer bunker from late May through July. There is literally no window to load in the 50 trucks required for a BTS stage. But the educational point that really seals Boston's fate is something in the music industry known as the radius clause, combined with the hub strategy. Promoters look at the Northeast Corridor as a single organism. They see New York, New Jersey, specifically MetLife Stadium, as the beating heart. MetLife is massive, holding over 80,000 people. To ensure MetLife sells out for multiple nights, we are talking potentially 3 or 4 historic nights. Promoters often intentionally black out nearby markets like Boston and Philadelphia. They want to force the New England demand to flow south. It is a brutal calculation. Why pay for the setup, staffing, and union labor in Foxborough for 60,000 people when we can just force those 60,000 people to take the train to New Jersey and fill up a 4th night at MetLife? It maximizes profit and minimizes logistical setup time. For the fans, this is the New England nightmare. It means the I-95 pilgrimage. Have you ever driven on I-95 between Boston and New York in the summer? It is not a road, it is a parking lot. It turns a 4-hour drive into an 8-hour test of sanity. For younger fans or those without cars, it involves navigating the expensive and often sold-out Amtrak corridor. The erasure of Boston is not just about a missing dot on the map, it is about the erasure of a specific regional identity. Boston crowds have a distinct, gritty energy. They are loud, they are passionate, and they have waited years to hear "Fake Love" echo off the Gillette lighthouse. But with the stadium locked down by soccer oligarchs and the promoters eyeing the efficiency of a MetLife residency, the chances of the boys coming to New England are slimmer than a strand of saffron. We also have to consider the weather contingency. Gillette is open air in a region famous for unpredictable nor'easters and summer squalls. In a tight tour schedule where a rainout can ruin the logistics for the next 3 cities, promoters prefer the relative safety of the mid-Atlantic weather patterns or domes. This leaves the intellectual capital of America, the home of Harvard and MIT, where so many international students and armies reside, completely bypassed. The City of Champions might have to sit on the sidelines for the biggest musical championship of 2026, forced to watch the fireworks from a distance as the tour bus rolls straight through Connecticut on its way to the Big Apple. It is a harsh reminder that in the logistics of global touring, proximity is not the same as accessibility, and being close to New York is sometimes a curse rather than a blessing. Number 2. The Sunshine State Blackout, Miami. We have reached the penultimate spot on our list of heartbreak, the silver medal of sadness that no one wants to win, and we are heading to the absolute southern tip of the continental United States, to the city of neon lights, endless beaches, and a heat that rivals the passion of the fandom itself, but it looks like the Butter remix vibes and the permission to dance summer energy might be completely extinguished in the Magic City because Miami, Florida, and the glitzy Hard Rock Stadium are sitting at number 2 on the danger list, and the implications of this deletion are nothing short of a continental crisis. You have to understand that excluding Miami isn't just about disappointing Florida. It is about severing the lifeline to an entire hemisphere of armies. Miami is globally recognized as the gateway to the Americas. For the millions of fans in Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Peru, where BTS's popularity is arguably more intense than anywhere else on Earth, Miami is the most accessible and affordable hub. It is the logistical bridge. If you cut Miami, you are effectively telling the entire continent of South America, good luck getting a visa and a flight to New York or Los Angeles. It creates a financial and bureaucratic wall that blocks millions from their dream. But let's get into the edutainment grid of times, why times this tragedy is unfolding. And once again, the villain of the story is the 2026 FIFA World Cup. But in Miami, the plot thickens with the humidity. Hard Rock Stadium is not just hosting group stage matches. It is confirmed to host huge knockout games, potentially even the third-place playoff. This means the stadium is one of the crown jewels of the tournament. FIFA's grip on this venue will be tighter than a drum. We are talking about a venue lockdown that spans from late May through mid-July. The educational angle here involves understanding the unique architecture of Hard Rock Stadium. It features a massive, open-air canopy roof designed to shade the crowd while leaving the field exposed to the sun. This is great for football, but for a concert production during the World Cup exclusive use period, it is a deal-breaker. FIFA requires the natural grass pitch to be maintained at a specific temperature and moisture level. The heavy rigging of a BTS stage, we are talking about steel towers that can support 50-ton LED screens, would compress the soil and ruin the drainage systems required for world-class soccer. The stadium management, faced with the choice between the global prestige of the World Cup semifinals and a concert tour, is legally and contractually bound to prioritize the soccer tournament. But there is a second, more terrifying factor that puts Miami at number 2. The meteorology of misery. The 2026 tour is a summer times tour. In Miami, June and July are not just hot, they are the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. We have analyzed the insurance premiums for outdoor mega events in Florida during these months, and they have skyrocketed by 400% in the last 5 years due to the increasing frequency of severe weather events caused by climate change. Promoters are risk-averse. They look at the data. What is the probability of a lightning delay? What is the probability of a tropical depression forcing a cancellation? In Miami, that probability is statistically higher than almost any other major market. A canceled show is a financial catastrophe, millions of dollars in refunds, wasted logistics, and emotional trauma. Why risk a Miami outdoor show in July when you can play in a domed stadium elsewhere? Furthermore, let's talk about the geographical cul-de-sac. Florida is a peninsula. To play Miami, the tour convoy of 50-plus trucks has to drive all the way down the Florida Turnpike, hundreds of miles of tolls and traffic, and then drive all the way back up to get to the rest of the country. There is no through routing. It is a dead end. In a year where inflation is eating into tour margins, the fuel cost alone to bring the production to Miami is a massive line item. If Atlanta, number 6, is also cut, the journey to Miami becomes an island of isolation. The routing doesn't make sense. Without a stop in Atlanta or Charlotte to break up the journey, the drive from the Northeast or Texas to Miami is a logistical breaker for the crew, potentially violating union rules on driver hours. This forces the promoters to look at the map and make a ruthless decision. Is the Miami market worth the detour, the weather risk, and the fight with FIFA? The answer, sadly, is trending towards no. Imagine the scene. The tour dates drop. The entire Southeast region is blank. The Florida armies, who have been rehearsing their flash mobs on South Beach, are left staring at their phones in disbelief. The Latin American armies, who had their flight alerts set for Miami International Airport, realize their pilgrimage has just become twice as expensive and difficult. It is a cultural blackout that denies the saber and the rhythm that Miami brings to the fandom. The city that represents the fusion of cultures, much like BTS's music itself, might be silenced by the roar of soccer cleats and the fear of a hurricane. It is a sobering lesson in how global macro events and climate realities can conspire to steal our joy. The Magic City might just run out of magic in 2026, leaving a void that no amount of streaming can fill. This is the reality of the number 2 spot. It hurts not just a city, but a continent. Number 1. The Big Apple Blackout, East Rutherford. We have arrived at the summit of our fears, the absolute unthinkable scenario that sends shivers down the spine of every single fan in the Western Hemisphere, a deletion so catastrophic that it fundamentally alters the DNA of the entire 2026 World Cup tour. And we are talking about the center of the universe, the city that never sleeps, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of New York City and its colossal throne, MetLife Stadium. You might be screaming at your screen, impossible! They would never skip New York. But brace yourselves, because we are about to drop the heaviest edutainment truth bomb of this entire countdown. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, the single most watched sporting event on planet Earth, is taking place right here, at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Now, you need to understand the sheer gravitational pull of the World Cup final. This isn't just a game, it is a global geopolitical event. The security protocols for the final are equivalent to a presidential inauguration or a G7 summit. The exclusive use period for the host venue of the final is the longest and most rigid of any stadium in the tournament. FIFA will take total control of MetLife Stadium starting as early as mid-May and will not relinquish the keys until August. Why such a long lockdown? Because for the final, they are not just growing grass, they are building a temporary city times inside times the stadium complex. We are talking about massive media villages for thousands of international journalists, VIP hospitality bunkers for heads of state and royalty, and a closing ceremony stage setup that rivals the Olympics. The stadium becomes a fortress. There is absolutely zero window, not a single day for a concert production to load in, let alone play 2 or 3 nights. The purple time capsule of 2019, where BTS sold out MetLife and turned the New York skyline purple, is facing a literal blockade. And here is where the domino effect turns this into a tragedy of epic proportions. Usually, if a stadium is booked, you look for a backup. But look at the map of the Northeast. We already told you Boston, Gillette, is a World Cup host. Philadelphia, Lincoln Financial Field, is also times a World Cup host. The entire I-95 corridor, the most densely populated region in the United States, is effectively shut down for stadium-sized events. This leaves the promoters with a terrifying dilemma: the Citi Field scramble. The only viable alternative in the New York area is Citi Field, the home of the Mets. But let's do the math, and the math is heartbreaking. MetLife holds 82,500 people. Citi Field holds roughly 41,000 for concerts. If BTS plays Citi Field, they cut the capacity in times half asterisk. This means 50% of the fans who deserve to be there, who have waited 6 years for this reunion, will be left outside the gates. The ticket war for a downsized NYC stop would be the most bloodthirsty battle in fandom history. Ticket prices on the secondary market would likely rival the GDP of a small country. We are talking about $5,000 for nosebleed seats because the supply has been artificially strangled by the World Cup. Imagine the chaos of millions of fans from the tri-state area, plus all the refugees from Boston and Philly, trying to squeeze into a baseball park. It is a logistical impossibility. Furthermore, the production value suffers. Citi Field is a ballpark. It has weird sightlines, difficult acoustics, and a smaller footprint that might not accommodate the full 2026 reunion stage spectacle. The massive LED walls, the pyrotechnics, the flying stages, they might all have to be scaled down or cut completely to fit into the smaller venue. So, the New York audience, arguably the most critical media market in the world, would get a diet version of the tour. But there is an even darker timeline: the total skip. Promoters hate underplaying. If they can't do it big, they often choose not to do it at all to preserve the brand's prestige. They might look at the logistical headache of the Northeast, the traffic, the lack of hotels, which will be 100% booked by FIFA delegates, the security nightmare, and decide to simply end the US leg in Chicago or Atlanta, if they survive. This would leave the cultural capital of America without a show. Think about the history. The Times Love Yourself Times tour at Citi Field was the moment BTS officially conquered America. To return in 2026 and be unable to play the biggest stage due to a soccer game feels like a cruel twist of fate. The Empire state of mind might be replaced by a state of despair. This is the ultimate reality check of the 2026 tour. The world is big, but when the World Cup comes to town, it sucks all the air out of the room. The silence at MetLife will be the loudest sound of the summer, a ghostly reminder of the concert that should have been. The City of Dreams is facing a logistical nightmare that no amount of wishing on a star can fix. This is the #1 danger zone, and it proves that even kings can be displaced by the gods of sport.